You know, you probably tapped your phone to buy your morning coffee today, or maybe you swiped a card without even really looking at the screen.
Yeah, we treat money as just purely transactional now. It's basically an invisible data transfer floating in the ether.
Right. But if I asked you to actually pull a physical $20 note out of your wallet and hold it up to the light, you wouldn't just be looking at a tool for buying a sandwich.
No, absolutely not. You'd be holding this fractured, microscopically perfect magic trick designed to thwart international crime syndicates.
Which is exactly our mission for today's deep dive. We are exploring this comprehensive Wikipedia article detailing the history, the design, and the evolution of the Australian $20 note.
It's a great topic because physical currency is never just about commerce. It's a highly engineered snapshot of national identity.
It really is. It tells you exactly what a nation values, who its heroes are, and how it wants to present itself to the world, and to its enemies, really, at a specific point in time. Okay, let's unpack this. Because I am just marveling at the sheer volume of history printed on a flexible plastic rectangle that is, what, only 144 by 65 millimeters?
Yeah, it's a tiny canvas.
Yeah.
But to understand it, we really have to go back to the beginning. The birth of the $20 note on a very specific date, February 14th, 1966.
Valentine's Day, 1966.
Right. And this wasn't just a new design. It was a monumental psychological shift for the entire country.
Because that was the day Australia formally ditched the old British system, right? The Australian pound?
Correct. They dropped the complicated shillings and pence, and they shifted to the new, clean, base 10 decimal system, the Australian dollar.
Wait, okay. If you're trying to completely overhaul a nation's currency system and get citizens used to base $10 instead of pounds, why do the sources say they deliberately kept the new $20 note the same color as the old 10-pound note? It's funny, right? It sounds totally counterintuitive.
Yeah. Doesn't that defeat the whole point of a fresh start? Well, it was actually a brilliant piece of behavioral economics. I mean, imagine the sheer chaos of waking up one morning and the entire mathematical foundation of how you buy groceries has changed.
Oh, man. Yeah, people would panic.
Exactly. They wanted to smooth out that psychological transition. By keeping the visual language familiar, like if your old 10-pound note was orange, your new equivalent $20 note is going to be orange.
Yeah.
They anchored the new scary math to a familiar visual cue.
Which brings us to the great color debate. Is the note actually red or is it orange?
The classic argument.
The article officially clarifies this, by the way. It's a highly specific mix of Clinton red and orange, specifically chosen to represent the deep, dusty, iron-rich earth of the Australian outback.
Right. But because of that very distinct, aggressive red-orange hue, the public almost instantly gave it one of the greatest nicknames in global currency.
The Lobster.
The Lobster. It's just so distinctly Australian to immediately strip the formality away from national currency with a colloquial nickname like that.
And they printed so many of them. The sources note that by June 2017, there were 164 million of these lobsters in circulation.
Yeah.
That's roughly 11% of all banknotes out there. It carried a total physical value of over $3.2 billion.
That is a lot of lobsters.
It is. But here is the thing that really caught my eye about those early days. It's like a corporate brand refresh where the executives were too afraid to completely let go of their original logo.
So what do you mean?
Well, from its launch in 1966 all the way until 1974, the main title printed on the note didn't just say Australia. It read Commonwealth of Australia.
What's fascinating here is how a simple typographical change on a piece of paper perfectly mirrors a nation's shifting geopolitics.
Right.
During that first 8-year run, they pumped out nearly 147 million of those Commonwealth of Australia notes. It was this lingering psychological tie to the British Empire.
But then in 1974, they deliberately dropped Commonwealth of.
Yep. And from then until the end of the paper era in 1994, they printed over 1.6 billion notes that simply confidently read Australia.
It's subtle, but dropping those two words is essentially a mass-distributed Declaration of Independence, handed out in change at every bakery and petrol station in the country.
Precisely. They were stepping out of the colonial shadow and asserting themselves on the global stage as this modern, independent entity.
So let's look at that first canvas, the paper era, because the intellectual themes they chose to display on this new, confident currency are wild.
They really are.
You flip this note over, and it is entirely dedicated to the obsession with flight and physics. On the obverse of the front, you have Sir Charles Kingsford Smith, the legendary aviator.
And on the reverse, you have Lawrence Hargrave, alongside his intricate drawings of early aircraft designs.
Which makes sense for an aviation theme.
Definitely, because Hargrave's box kites and aerodynamic theories were actually instrumental in the development of early flight globally. He even influenced the Wright brothers.
But the designers didn't just put their portraits on the note. Behind Kingsford Smith, there is literal complex math.
The curves, right.
Yeah, the design explicitly includes 5 Lissajous curves drawn by a two-pendulum harmonograph. Now, I have to ask on behalf of the listener, what on earth is a two-pendulum harmonograph?
Quite the contraption.
And why dedicate incredibly valuable real estate on your national currency to abstract physics equations instead of just slapping another politician on there?
Well, to understand the harmonograph, imagine tying a pen to 2 swinging pendulums. One is swinging side to side, the other is swinging back and forth.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
As they lose momentum, the pen draws these beautiful, complex, overlapping, continuous loops. Those are Lissajous curves. They visually represent the mathematics of complex frequencies, vibrations, and resonance.
Okay, but how does swinging a pen on a pendulum relate to flying an airplane?
Because resonance is the exact physics you need to master to keep an airplane from shaking itself apart in the sky.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, if you've ever seen a washing machine violently vibrate and break during a spin cycle because the load is unbalanced, that's resonance.
Right.
Now imagine that mathematical force acting on a canvas and wood biplane over the Pacific Ocean. Putting those curves on the note wasn't just decorative, it was a statement.
So they were showing off their priorities.
Exactly. The paper note was designed in an era where conquering the skies was the absolute pinnacle of human progress. Australia was telling its citizens that it valued intellect, the mechanics of progress, and the underlying math that made survival possible.
It's a literal physics lesson in your pocket. And speaking of the details on those paper notes, there's a great nugget in the sources for the collectors listening.
Oh, the signatures.
Yes. Throughout the entire lifespan of the $20 note, the printing plates had to be updated to feature exactly 14 different signature combinations.
Right, the signatures of the governor of the Reserve Bank and the secretary to the Treasury. They act as the official authorization of the currency's value.
And if you happen to be checking your old paper notes in a shoebox somewhere, pay attention to the dates. The 1967 issue was printed for only a single year.
Which makes it incredibly valuable to collectors today.
Exactly. And the 1989 combination featuring the signatures of Philip and Fraser was issued for even less than a year.
That's a rare find.
But eventually the era of paper comes to an end, we conquer the skies, and then the narrative of the currency shifts dramatically downward, back down to the dirt.
Specifically to the harsh, unforgiving terrain of the Australian Outback. Because in 1994, Australia didn't just redesign the artwork, they pioneered a massive technological shift.
From paper to polymer banknotes, biaxially oriented polypropylene to be exact.
That's a mouthful. But yes, plastic money.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because when they switched to polymer in 1994, they brought in designer Gary Emery. And the sheer density of Easter eggs he packed into this new design is staggering.
It really is a crowded canvas.
It's like a Where's Waldo of Outback history. I'm looking at the description, and you've got a sailing ship, a biplane, early colonial buildings, and wait, is that a guy riding a camel?
It sure is.
Let's break down exactly who these people are. On the front, we have Mary Reiby. How does someone featured in the source's convict templates end up on the $20 note?
Her story is incredible. She wasn't born into royalty. She was actually convicted of horse stealing in England as a teenager.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah. She disguised herself as a boy, got caught, and was transported to the penal colony of Australia. But instead of letting that dictate her life, she eventually became one of the most successful shipping magnates and entrepreneurs in the colony's history.
That is an amazing turnaround.
It is. So her portrait sits alongside an early colonial building in Sydney and the sailing ship Mercury, which represents the fleet she built from absolutely nothing.
So the front is about economic triumph over circumstance. And then you flip it over to the reverse, and it is a masterclass in Outback survival.
Completely different vibe.
Yeah, you have Reverend John Flynn, who founded what became Frontier Services and the world-famous Royal Flying Doctor Service.
And to represent that, there's a Qantas-supplied de Havilland DH-50 biplane named Victory right there with him.
But what really caught my attention was the inclusion of the pedal wireless, invented by Alfred Herman Traeger.
Oh, the pedal wireless completely revolutionized Outback survival.
How so?
Well, in the 1920s, if you lived on a remote homestead and someone broke their leg or fell ill, the isolation could literally be a death sentence. There were no phone lines.
So how did a pedal wireless solve that? I mean, just pedaling.
Traeger brilliantly combined a radio transmitter with bicycle pedals. He realized that the biggest hurdle in the Outback wasn't just the radio signal, it was generating the electricity to power the radio.
Oh, because they didn't have a power grid.
Exactly. So he hooked a generator up to a set of pedals. You would sit there, physically pedal like you were riding a bicycle to generate the electrical wattage and use that power to transmit a Morse code plea for a flying doctor.
That is the definition of rugged innovation.
It truly is.
And tucked right in there alongside Flynn and the pedal radio is College Harland. He was a missionary who serviced the inland people, and he's quite literally depicted riding a camel across the note.
Along with a compass printed in the clear window with the raised number 20.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Gary Emery's polymer design is telling a deeply cohesive story.
How so?
While the old paper note was about the theoretical physics of flight, the 1994 polymer note is fundamentally about grit and resilience.
Oh, I see.
It's about Mary Reiby overcoming her past to build an empire. It's about Flynn, Traeger, and Harland using medicine, mechanical generators, and camels to bridge the impossible, deadly distances of the continent.
It's a brilliant narrative arc. But as the stories printed on these notes became richer and more detailed, the vault protecting them had to evolve too.
Because a beautiful note is useless if anyone with a printer can copy it.
Right. Which brings us to the hidden defensive engineering of currency, the invisible cat and mouse game.
Counterfeiting isn't just a nuisance. A flood of fake currency can completely destabilize a nation's economy.
And the source material outlines exactly how Australia's defensive measures had to aggressively level up over the decades to stay ahead of international crime syndicates.
They had to.
Let's look at how analog the old paper-era security used to be. Their main defense was a watermark of Captain James Cook hidden in the white space.
Which, funny enough, they actually just lazily borrowed from the old pound notes.
Yeah. Then, by 1976, counterfeiting tech got better, so the bank retaliated by weaving a metallic strip into the paper. It started near the center and later moved to the left side of the note.
But when they made that massive shift to polymer in 1994, the security features went full sci-fi.
Totally.
Polymer plastic itself is inherently much harder to source and print on than paper. That immediately knocked out the amateur counterfeiters. But the Reserve Bank didn't stop there.
They leaned into the plastic aspect, right?
Yeah, they utilized the transparent nature of the plastic to create clear windows. They added a shadow image of the national coat of arms.
And the tactile stuff, too.
Right. They physically embossed the number 20 directly into the clear plastic panel, so a blind person or just someone checking their change in the dark could physically feel it.
That's so smart.
They even added fluorescent coloring to the serial numbers and a special value patch that is completely invisible until you expose it to ultraviolet light.
And we have to talk about the star feature. This is the coolest piece of engineering on the entire note, in my opinion.
Oh, the star is incredible.
There is a circular pattern printed on the polymer, but it's fractured. 4 points of a star are printed on the front of the note, and 3 points of the star are printed on the back.
And to the naked eye, they just look like random, chaotic, geometric shapes.
Right, until you hold the note up to a light source so you can see through the plastic.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? When you hold it up to the light, the front and back shapes align to form a flawless, perfectly symmetrical 7-pointed star.
It's amazing precision.
It's like cutting a complex QR code in half, printing one half on a window in New York, the other half on a window in London, and requiring them to line up perfectly when you look through them.
This raises an important question about the sheer scale of the invisible war between national banks and counterfeiters.
How do you mean?
Well, every single feature you just mentioned requires a manufacturing process called Intaglio Printing. It utilizes extreme pressures and simultaneous front and back alignment.
Oh, so it's not just stamping it twice?
No,
Yeah.
not at all. If the printing press shifts by even a fraction of a millimeter, that star fails to align and the note is destroyed.
Wow.
The bank is spending millions of dollars to engineer physical architecture with printing tolerances that are simply too mathematically complex and expensive for a criminal enterprise to replicate.
And on top of all that, they still have to ensure this high-tech fortress of a note can survive being crumpled up in a wet swimsuit or read perfectly by a vending machine optical scanner.
And that arms race never stops. Counterfeiters get better computers, so the bank has to build a better note.
Which is why, on October 9th, 2019, they released the next generation $20 banknote.
Right. They kept the exact same Clinton red and orange lobster color mix to maintain that psychological continuity we talked about earlier.
And they kept the characters of Mary Reiby and John Flynn, too.
But they upgraded the security to a whole new level. It features massive, clear, top-to-bottom windows and dynamic color-changing ink that actually shifts as you tilt the bill.
And they made one really specific historical update in that 2019 release. They swapped out Flynn's original plane. The old Victory biplane was replaced with a highly detailed depiction of a de Havilland Dragon Rapide airplane, specifically shown taking off from a remote homestead in Broken Hill.
It's just this beautiful, continuous polishing of the story alongside the security.
It really is.
It perfectly encapsulates the dual mandate of modern currency. They are refining the historical accuracy and the storytelling while simultaneously upgrading the physics to make the note essentially impossible to forge.
So let's look at the incredible journey this piece of currency has taken. We started in 1966 with a simple color continuity trick matching the old 10-pound note to comfort a public that was terrified of decimalization.
Right, easing them in.
Then it became a paper tribute to the physics of flight and the golden age of aviation. In 1994, it transformed into a highly engineered polymer canvas, celebrating the sheer rugged resilience of Outback pioneers and pedal-powered radios.
And today, it's a cutting-edge fortress of anti-counterfeiting technology that still remembers to honor a missionary riding a camel.
It is a profound evolution for an object most people just shove into their pockets without a second thought.
Truly.
Which is exactly why I want to put a challenge out to you, the listener. The next time you are handed a physical $20 note, or honestly, any piece of physical currency from anywhere in the world, don't just instantly put it away.
Take a second look.
Yeah, take a second look. Hold it up to the light and look for that perfectly aligned star. Feel the raised ink of the Intaglio printing. Look for the microprinting, the hidden physics equations, or the tiny historical figures fighting for space in the background. Spot the stories and the science before you hand it over.
And as you do that, here's a final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We've spent this entire deep dive exploring the incredible physical art, the layered history, and the tactile engineering woven into these polymer canvases. But as our society rapidly shifts toward digital payments, Apple Pay, and tap-and-go cards, are we slowly losing this pocket-sized medium for national storytelling?
That's a great point.
Will the intricate, carefully curated legacy of the Lobster, with its harmonographs, convicts turned magnates, and hidden watermarks, one day be replaced entirely by a sterile, invisible line of code on a bank server?
It really makes you wonder, because that instant, frictionless precision of a digital transaction is convenient, but it certainly isn't as beautiful or as human as the messy, dusty Clinton red history staring back at us from the canvas right inside our wallets.